Hello, this is Dana Arcuri, author, speaker, survivor, and certified trauma recovery coach from danaarcuri.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. I had someone a few months ago ask me a question, and it just keeps coming up with other people asking this question. I call it the $1,000,000 question, but today I'm going to tackle it to the best of my ability. And so we're going to take a deep dive into the question. And so the person asked, why do some people heal from trauma and abuse and others do not? So, that's a really tough question, and I've let it kind of marinate on my mind in the past couple months, just really pondering some deep thoughts and seeking wisdom and discernment and going off of my own personal experience and my professional experience, especially in the mental health community. And so today, let's dive right into this topic. Okay, so why do some people heal from abuse and trauma and other people are still very much stuck and they may not recover? And so there's a lot that goes into this. And the truth is there's really not like one simple answer. There's not one simple, easy solution. Instead, there's so many variables that are based on, why does someone heal and why does another person not heal? And especially when we're talking about trauma, because trauma runs very deep. So before I even start unraveling this topic, I wanted to first give a little insight on statistics regarding abuse and regarding trauma, so you have a better understanding of real life statistics, and just the statistics and themselves do speak volumes. Okay, so let's start with, according to statistics, over 158 million people in the USA alone have experienced narcissistic abuse. And then if we keep going and we think about trauma and we look at worldwide statistics, so in worldwide statistics, over 70% of the worldwide population has suffered at least one traumatic event or more in their lifetime. And that is really, really deeply concerning, especially for myself as a trauma survivor and a certified trauma recovery coach. Then if we look at another statistic, 40% of men and women in the USA alone have suffered sibling abuse. Okay, so there's a lot going on here with these statistics. It's showing that there's so much trauma, there's so much turmoil, there's so much anguish and suffering and abuse happening worldwide today. And so, my friend, if you fit into this category and you're nodding your head and saying, hey, that's me, I suffered either sibling abuse, or I suffered sexual abuse, or I suffered narcissistic abuse, various different challenges, dysfunctional family, very jealous, toxic siblings, possibly a narcissistic mother, father, boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, or coworker, or someone else that was quite malicious and toxic towards you, I guarantee you are not alone. And so when we look at healing, we have to understand that technically it is an inside job. And so it's common that people look outward. They look outward and they want someone else to heal them. And while I validate this, there is a lot of good in our world. There's so many different nonprofits and different communities and different support systems, advocacy groups, people like me who are building awareness, especially on abuse and trauma. We can understand that there are so many wonderful, beautiful souls out there who are helping all of us to heal. And that is a beautiful thing. But we have to keep in mind that healing is an inside job. That means that each one of us are going to be part of our healing journey, and we're going to look inward to see what can support us in our healing recovery process. And a lot of people are not understanding, or they're not even aware of or educated, that healing is something that is within us. We innately can heal ourselves naturally and gently. So I'll get into that a little bit further into my message today. So let's move on and talk about what are some of the negative actions or behaviors that can hinder someone's pathway to healing. And so this is by no means like a pointing the finger, or there is no judgment here, there is no shame here. This is just coming from some facts and some credible evidence of why some people may not heal or fully heal. So a part of this is being wise, having wisdom, and really being honest with our own selves. Okay, so one reason why someone may have certain behaviors, actions, belief systems involving the lack of healing is their inner self-critic. Now, we have to understand this. There is no shame or guilt involved with having an inner critic. It is part of trauma survivors. It is part of the way we were raised. Typically, when we have that inner critic who's kind of like rearing their ugly head and they're like screaming profanities to us, or they're saying, you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not lovable, you're not enough, you're just not deserving of healing. We can really bring that to the root of where this inner critic began. It began with a perpetrator or perpetrators who spoke harsh words, condemnation, judgment, criticisms, manipulation, and gaslighting to you. And if you were a child, I mean, this is brainwashing. This is something that radically changed who you were in your child development and who you became as an adult. If you are dealing with the inner critic, my number one little self-help for you is to read the book. And it is by Dr. Pete Walker. Excuse me. He's not a doctor. Let's get this straight. He is a therapist. He is a survivor of abuse. So Pete Walker is a breath of fresh air. In his book called Complex PTSD From Surviving to Thriving, awesome book. It has a wealth of knowledge on how to conquer your inner critic. Whether you do or you don't have complex PTSD, if you suffer narcissistic abuse, sibling abuse, any form of toxic relationships, sexual abuse, and trauma, this book really is informative, educational. It was my number one book that I just absolutely adore and love because it is so helpful in the healing journey. Next, other than the inner critic that could cause a hindrance to your healing, you might have a victim mindset. And so a victim mindset is common in the abuse community because oftentimes we clearly understand that we were victimized. We were bullied into silence. There might have been hoovering. There might have been toxic shame or blame shifting. Oftentimes the perpetrators do not want to be exposed. So what they do is they blame shift and they dump all the toxic shame onto the survivor of abuse. And again, having a victim mindset, while it is common and normal, this is a trauma response. Again, no shame, no judgment here. I very much can validate what you've experienced. However, the goal is never to stay stuck in the victim mindset. The goal is to open your mind to various ways of healing and changing your thought patterns, which leads me to another hindrance to healing is if someone is stuck in their old mindset, their false beliefs. Maybe they have a trauma bond to someone who abused them. Perhaps they are stuck in this vicious cycle and it's just going around and around and around and around where they have very, very unhealthy thinking patterns, beliefs, and a mindset that is poisoning their body, mind, and soul, in which It really takes a lot of effort, and it can take also seeking emotional support and educating yourself about healing trauma to just be a beautiful pathway to opening up your mind to all kind of holistic modalities to heal, different preventative methods to kick that inner critic to the curb, because it's not helping you, it's hindering you. And another thing is, if someone's a people pleaser, if someone has no healthy boundaries, that could hinder your process to healing. Another thing that could keep you in a vicious cycle is if you are still in a relationship and you are still in contact with one or more perpetrators. So this goes hand in hand with that truthful fact that we cannot heal when we are in a toxic environment, nor can we heal if we are still in a relationship with a toxic, abusive perpetrator who is hindering our ability to recover from our trauma. So do what you need to do to take care of you. There are some cases where people cannot leave the perpetrator or the abuser, especially if you are married to them at this moment and you are not financially able to leave. So there's a lot of reasons why people might still be in a very unhealthy dynamic, especially with your family or any form of loved ones. But do the best that you can to at least gray rock and limit your contact with anyone who is a potential emotional vampire in your life. Next, let's talk about self-concept, because a big part of healing trauma and healing from these very abusive relationships is opening up the door to understanding, what is self-concept? What is my self-concept? What does this involve? How can I improve my self-concept? And so let's go forth and talk about this. So according to verywell.com, they say self-concept is the image we have of ourselves. Self-concept is also how we perceive our behaviors, our abilities, and our unique characteristics. In addition, at the core of our self-concept is how it affects our mind, our mental health, our emotional wellness, our attitudes, our identity, and our perception of ourselves. Next is our self-concept does influence our self-esteem, all of our relationships, and our self-confidence. And there are times where a trauma response can lead you to not feel lovable and not feel worthy. But yet, my friend, if there's nothing else you get out of this message today, let it be this. You are so worthy of investing in your healing journey. You are so worthy of receiving and giving unconditional, authentic love. And so please know that even if you were brainwashed to believe that you are not lovable and that people do not accept you and they condemn you and judge you, never mind the naysayers. Rise up, my friends, because you are so worthy and deserving of healing, health, and hope, rebuilding a brand new life and breaking free of the chains that bind you today. Next, we're going to talk about more along the lines of our mindset, because boy, oh boy, the subconscious mind is so powerful. The way we think, our beliefs, our belief systems, our values, the way we were raised, and the different traditions we were brought up with, and the way relationships in our lives, even in the past, have influenced us. It all can very much bring us to where we are today. So if you are feeling stuck and that you're not healing, and you feel like you're not quite sure what's going on, but you just know you're missing something, try to look into the subconscious mind and how you can transform your thoughts to empower you to heal body, mind, soul, and spirit. So a big part of healing from abuse and trauma is shifting our mindset. We have to weed out those old patterns negative thoughts, false beliefs, the inner critic that no longer aligns to us. And oftentimes this means, number one, building awareness. So build awareness. What are you speaking out loud? What are you saying to yourself silently? Again, that inner critic may be saying something. And again, I oftentimes think the inner critic is actually rooted to the perpetrator. So you may have heard phrases and words like, you're not thin enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not smart enough, oh, you're just not lovable. It's just so hard to love you, those abusers say. And so we have to understand that if this happened in your childhood, it really was ingrained in your mind at a young age, which really did have an impact on your child development and the person you became as a grown adult. So when you have a healthy self-concept and you believe that you are worthy of goodness and positivity and respect and gentleness and compassion and love, then you have the innate ability to heal yourself. So it really does begin in the mind. The mind is where it all happens. And building awareness about the mind, of the subconscious mind, of how our words and thoughts definitely reflect our outcome in our life. This is something really important to check into. Next is, again, healing is an inside job. And while a lot of people look outside of themselves to heal, we must understand that oftentimes the number one way that we can heal is taking an inside look, self-reflection, processing what happened to us, being aware of what took place, understanding the abuse is not your fault. However, now that you are a grown adult, healing is your responsibility. So sometimes people don't want to hear that. And I remember the first time I actually read that online where someone said, you are not responsible for your abuse, but you're responsible for healing. And at first I was just like, I kind of cringed. I didn't like that. But the more I kind of like let it marinate and just kind of ponder those words, and I thought to myself, you know what? It's actually true though. It's actually true. You know, nobody heals by accident. Healing is not an accident. Healing is intentional. It is taking daily steps forward. And so this video is meant to help you take those daily steps forward. Even if it's one teeny tiny baby step, my friend, you are so worthy of it. Next is, let's talk about the 6 steps to improve your self-concept and your ability to heal. So the first one is commitment. Commitment. And this one takes a lot of honesty. A lot of honesty with ourselves, a lot of self-reflection, like looking inward and saying, am I really committed 100% to doing all of the work to heal from abuse and trauma? You know, I have to include the grief work. Wherever there is the trauma recovery, there will always be, it's like hand in hand. Here's the trauma, here's the grief. They come together. And what happens is we have to do the grief work too. Why? Because trauma and abuse is all about grief. There is a lot of grief. I mean, when you are betrayed by someone, whether it was your mother, your brother, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, an intimate partner, a coworker, a friend, etc., the betrayal stings. It cuts like a knife. And so when we end up working through and processing what happened to us, we can understand that there's loss. A loss of relationship, a loss of that innocent child who was abused, loss of a potential relationship. It might be with your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, a husband, a wife, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, etc., etc. And so when we are taking a deep dive into, you know, am I committed to my healing recovery? We have to also be committed to doing the hard work. That means letting the tears flow. I've always said, grief is like the ocean. It ebbs and it flows. There are times we feel like we are being, literally drowning. We're being taken into the deep waters that are murky and it doesn't feel good. We might feel like we're drowning. And then there are other times we feel like we are staying afloat. And so grief kind of comes and it kind of goes. And there's 5 stages. Do the grief work, my friends. Seek emotional support in whatever manner works for you. Especially seek someone who is trauma informed and very educated and experienced in whatever type of abuse you have suffered. Next is, other than being committed to your healing journey, committed to yourself, committed to the work, committed to whoever you are working with in your trauma survivor recovery process, do whatever it takes to keep moving forward. And understand that when you are committed to yourself and this emotional recovery process, oftentimes it will result in wonderful, beautiful outcomes. Next is emotional support, which I already said. Seek someone who's trauma informed. Seek someone who's a good fit for you. Make sure this person's very educated, very aware, and it really helps if they're also personally experienced in the same type of abuse that you have suffered. Number 3, daily affirmations. Oh my goodness. People might think, oh, this is just kind of woo-woo. This is kind of like, whoa, way out there. I don't need to do daily affirmations. But this goes right back to mindset and the subconscious mind. What are you feeding your mind? The mind is like a garden and we have to weed it. Pull those weeds out. Pull those weeds out. Whoo, see those beautiful flowers there? That's it. That's it. You want to pull the weeds out, and you want to then be able to fully blossom and flourish. And when you nourish yourself, you can flourish, my friend. You most certainly can. Next is, when you are speaking these daily affirmations, you are actually speaking positivity into your life, into your body, mind, and soul. And so every day you can have various affirmations that you speak out loud. You could speak something such as, I am divinely loved. I am protected and supported. I have everything I need. And there's many different affirmations. There's hundreds and hundreds of online websites that you could check out to implement daily affirmations into your life. Next would be number 4, self-care and empowerment. So part of the healing journey is taking care of ourselves. Just like that saying, you cannot fill from an empty cup. So please fill your cup. Understand that self-care is not selfish, it's necessary, and it is essential in your healing journey. Next would be honesty, acceptance, and truth seeking. And so when we are dealing with abuse and trauma, it can be very painful. There's a lot of anguish. Again, there can be some discomfort and a trauma response. It's common, okay? So don't run from the triggers. Don't run from the flashbacks. Instead, observe it non-judgmentally. And understand that the more you can be aware of what triggers you, then you could also start gaining new tools to help you to conquer the triggers and to overcome them. And the more you do this, actually the healthier and the more you heal. So there's a lot of really great things involved with that. Next would be to look outside the box. While I know a lot of people might be into like traditional mental health, traditional medicine, traditional and conventional Western medicine and healing, I really believe, and this is based on my own personal experience, for me, healing was not traditional. Healing was non-traditional. It was holistic modalities. It was looking outside the box. It was taking ownership of my life and knowing that I have the innate ability to heal. And so I've been on this healing journey since 2008 when I was first diagnosed with fibromyalgia and chronic pain. And this healing journey has just expanded me. It has transformed me. It is the most beautiful, beautiful thing. When you take ownership of your life, you look inward and you look outside the box. So I'm going to list a few things that are outside the box as far as holistic modalities that can help you heal. So one is somatic embodiment. Next would be various ways to calm your nervous system. Next would be EMDR. Other than that is emotional freedom technique. I'm looking on my notes. If you're wondering why I'm looking down, I'm looking at my notes. Journaling and writing is extremely cathartic, healing, and therapeutic. Some people really gain a lot from writing out, their feelings, what they're processing. Sometimes just venting on paper and venting, because it can feel good to just let it out. Just let it out. In the privacy of your own home, keep it confidential, hide your journal, keep it in a place where only you can find it. Another thing is seeking professional massage therapy and body work. Very, very helpful for the healing journey, because we have to understand now, when it comes to trauma, it's linked to the body-mind connection, which is cellular memory and epigenetics. So we feel it to heal it. We feel it to heal it. And oftentimes there's trapped trauma, trapped negative toxic energy inside of us. So when we seek things such as acupuncture, things such as the body work, massage therapy, energy healing, it really helps to release the trapped trauma and negative energy from your body. Next is essential oils to boost your emotional support. Also, here's some really helpful but natural ways to heal from abuse and trauma. Music therapy, pet therapy, art therapy. Let your hands and let your creativity just let loose. Another thing, believe it or not, dancing and shaking. I may have to do a complete video on this one. In my class on somatic embodiment, we were taught about how animals have this natural instinct to shake off their trauma. So they shake it off. They shake it off. There's various ways we could do these shaking movements. There's some really awesome videos on YouTube also about the shaking. And so the bottom line is, animals have this instinct to shake off their trauma. They intuitively, instinctively know how to calm their nervous system. Now, it's like, whoa, why did humans miss this? Why are humans missing this? This is the missing link, my friends. Shake it off, shake it off, shake it off. It's a beautiful thing. I may do a video on this that goes more in depth. I might have some fun too, blasting some fun upbeat music and showing you exactly how to do this shaking exercise. I think it's fun. I'm actually practicing this on a daily basis along with my gentle stretching. So healing. Next is nature, sunshine, being near water, waterfalls, a lake, a river. It is so healing to be in nature. So understand that when I talk about healing, and I talk about hey, let's look outside the box, keep your mind open to whatever works for you and your own interests. Next would be become crystal clear about what you want and need for your healing journey. So one thing is, another person cannot help you if you don't help yourself. So if you are resistant, if you are not willing, if you are not committed to your healing journey, someone such as a therapist, certified trauma recovery coach, a psychologist, a trauma-informed mental health professional can't help you if you are not willing to do the work of healing. So oftentimes, it's really crucial that each survivor of abuse and trauma considers and ponders, how can they emotionally support themselves? How can they find doable, realistic ways to heal themselves? And the key is to become crystal clear on what you need and make sure that it's realistic, it's doable, and, use your imagination, use your creativity. There are so many wonderful holistic modalities out there. So share with me today, have you suffered abuse and trauma? Are there any specific ways that you are healing and that it's really working well for you? I'd love to hear what you're doing. If you need emotional support, I am a certified trauma recovery coach who is there to help you along your healing journey, feel free to check out my website, danaarcuri.com. Like my video, subscribe to my channel. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments below. Thank you and have a beautiful day.